How's it going, everyone? College Lefty, and in this video I listed some of the best budget players in MLB The Show 23, so let's go ahead and get right into it. And we're starting the video off by unlocking one of the better budget starting pitchers for Set 2, and if Set 1 players were to be ineligible in ranked seasons as of this moment, then this would probably be my squad right now. Just kind of take you through quickly the team update, or at least what it would be like, right? Obviously there's going to be more Set 2 players and obviously Set 3 players released, but I think we will see a lot more of Buck O'Neil and some of the Negro League players implemented back into some people's teams because those guys are core guys. If you have the Buck O'Neil captain boost, these players are obviously a lot better, and I wanted to start the video off with them on the list. I also wanted to mention that this list is not in any particular order. Some of these guys are going to be at a 90 overall. Some of them are going to be at more of a 97 and a 99 overall. But a lot of these cards are going to be anywhere between 10,000 stubs and 60,000 stubs, or they're non-sellable free cards that you're able to unlock through Team Affinity programs or various programs throughout Diamond Dynasty. But also, a lot of these cards are Set 1 players, and you will be able to use these Set 1 players for around 40 days. The Set 2 players are usable for around 90 days, as there's about a 50-day overlap. Set 3 players will be usable for around 100 days or so, once we see those players start to be released in about 50 days. By that time, we'll probably have around 100 Set 3 players to choose from. A lot of those cards will be non-sellable through the Team Affinity program. A lot of those cards will also be, budget players. With that being said, I think that these cards are still going to be usable for quite some time at a 97 overall. We can expect some type of overall increase, right, with Set 3 players, with captain upgrades, necessarily with Team Affinities as well. We could see those players at a 98 or a 99 overall. But I like a lot of these cards. Some of these guys are on this list because they have some of the meta pitches, right? You'll see a lot of sinkers, you'll see a lot of cutters, both of them or one or the other. And you'll see a lot of good, well-balanced players on this list. Not necessarily, 5-tool guys with a ton of power, but you will see complete players for the most part. Some guys do have, 1 or 2 flaws, but they're also, between, like I said, 10K and 50K stubs. You can't really expect, the best cards in the entire game, but some of them play like some of the best cards in the entire game, depending on user input. And that's the best thing about MLB The Show, is that you can use, 90 overall cards. You can use 95 overall cards, especially this year with the captain boost, as well as, if the user is really good at controlling the PCI with the pinpoint meter, right? Some of these pitchers have, maybe a little bit worse control than others. Some of them have outliers. Some of them, have a good pitch mix or a funky delivery that we like to use. We'll get into some position players here in a little bit, but I do like using a lot of these pitchers. You can see that I've paralleled them up to at least, the first tier or maybe the second tier on a couple of them. Some of these guys, take a little bit of time to unlock, but at the same time, it's worth it. You have to play the game in order to get some of these stubs, in order to buy some of these budget players as well. But I think the game does provide, various ways to do that. The user kind of has to choose, what type of mode they like to play the most, and find the most efficient way for them to, unlock the best budget players, or the best players in general. Some of these cards, are around 60,000, but you can't expect their price to also go down, right? We've seen a variety of flash sales so far throughout the year, and we will probably see a few more flash sales, maybe with some Set 1 players, but for the most part, majority Set 2 players, which I think, for the most part, Set 2 players on this list. There are a couple that are more expensive, and there are a few that I've included from the collections. I think some of the Set 1 and 2 collection players you can kind of consider to be budget players. They do take a little bit more time to unlock, as I mentioned, right? Some of these guys on the list, like Jazz Chisholm and David Ortiz, I really think those guys at 95, collect cards or whatever, you can get a lot of these non-sellable players, and you could probably consider, one of those or both of those guys budget options, and they could be, some of the better options from these two sets. And some of these cards on the list I really haven't used as much, but they also perform pretty well against me when I have faced them, so I wanted to include them on the list. A lot of these cards I've used in previous MLB The Show games. I've talked a lot about them in previous videos, so I didn't really want to go into too much detail. I wanted to kind of provide to you about 90 budget players, or a little bit more than 90 cards. And I think that, from this list right here, you can build a pretty solid team, or at least a few different types of solid teams, right? Maybe you want more of a power hitting team. Maybe you like to use more balanced contact hitters with a lot of speed, or players that can bunt, and you want to bunt and steal bases. I'm not really sure, but there's a lot of different options, a lot of different players you can use. A lot of these cards are, grindable. You can pick maybe one or two of them from the Team Affinity program. You don't have to necessarily unlock all of them. Some of them are from the Captain program or from a Captain pack, and some of the cards have kind of fluctuated, and maybe they won't be budget players as the game cycle kind of continues. And when I mention that, I'm talking about players like Mookie Betts, Randy Johnson, as they were listed in this video, guys from the programs listed like Chase Utley, maybe guys from this Alter Ego pack that are in the XP loop. And when there's a double XP weekend, we can kind of expect a lot of these cards to go down in price, just based on the fact that a lot of them are in the programs, right? You can get some of these, switch hitters that are more balanced, or lefties that are more balanced. There's a lot of, balanced hitters, but not as many left-handed starting pitchers or left-handed relief pitchers. There's been a lot more released recently, but there's a lot more dominant right-handed starting pitchers and right-handed relief pitchers so far in this list for this specific video. And there's probably an additional, 20 to 30 players that you could add to the list. There's a lot of different budget options in the game. If you want to get, more of the elite players, or some of the elite players, you do have to spend, over 100,000 stubs. There's a reason why a lot of the cards on the marketplace are priced the way they're at. Some of it is based off of rarity. Some of it is more based off of that they're the best cards at their respective position, and they will be for, a little bit of time. On the flip side of that, I think there are a few players on this list that you can kind of combine to create the best player at, that respective position, or some of the better players at that respective position, basically by combining a lefty and platooning him with a righty to complete, a complete balanced player that could be a five-tool guy. For example, maybe using somebody like Jazz Chisholm and Randy Arozarena in the outfield. Both have diamond defense, both have great speed. One of them hits lefties, one of them hits righties, and I think that having a lefty or righty combination could be just as good as having a complete switch hitter like Chipper Jones or Mickey Mantle, maybe one of the more pricier cards. I guess, however, Chipper Jones is, one of those set one or two collection cards. I'm not going to include a player like that, right? We don't see Hank Aaron on here, although you could pick him. We're not going to see Randy Johnson on this list, although you could pick him. But these are just, some of my better options in terms of saving some stubs, using maybe a couple non-sellable cards. There are ways to get elite players that are non-sellable as well. But for the most part, these are a lot of the guys I would go to if I didn't have, a million stubs in my stub count, in my inventory. But let me know what players I kind of missed. Let me know what players you think are great budget options. And until next time, peace out.